Welcome, traveler. Tonight, we'll take a slow, quiet journey together. Not into a story of great battles or famous kings, but into the small, forgotten moments of daily life. We'll be stepping into the year 1347, just before the world begins to change. Close your eyes if you like. Let the noise of the present drift away. You are about to take your first breath of a medieval morning dot. The world around you is still asleep. The air is cool, touched with a soft dampness that clings to your skin like a thin veil. You stand in the center of a narrow cobbled lane, where the ground beneath your feet is uneven, worn smooth by countless footsteps over countless mornings. The sky above is not yet fully awake. A faint blush of pink is starting to gather on the eastern horizon, but for now, most of the world rests. In a hushed twilight, you can hear the faint rustle of leaves stirring in a gentle breeze. It carries with it the subtle, earthy scent of damp straw, mingled with the lingering smell of last night's hearth smoke. Somewhere, from behind a wooden fence, a rooster lets out a tired, croaking crow, not the sharp clarion call you might expect, but a more conversational murmur, as if even he is in no rush to welcome the day dot in the distance. You hear the soft toll of a bell. The sound is deep and slow, rolling through the morning air like a calm heartbeat. It might be the bell of the monastery, calling the brothers to their first prayers of the day, or perhaps the small stone church at the town's edge, reminding the townsfolk that time, even in 1347, still moves forward. But there is no hurry. Here, not in this moment that you begin to walk slowly, your footsteps echoing lightly against the cobbles. The houses on either side are timber-framed, their upper floors leaning in slightly, as if whispering secrets to one another across the narrow lane. Tiny glass windows, imperfect and wavy, catch the faintest glimmers of dawn. You pass by a small stable. Inside, a mule shifts lazily, the soft thud of its hoof meeting wood in an idle rhythm. A stable boy, perhaps no more than 12, brushes the mule's flank in slow, methodical strokes. His movements are unhurried, practiced. He hums a song to himself, a tune so old it has no known composer, passed from mouth to ear over generations. A little further on, a woman steps out from a cottage, wrapping a woolen shawl around her shoulders. Her breath clouds in the cool air as she bends to sweep her doorstep with a bundle of twigs. The sound of the bristles against stone is soft and steady, like a whisper brushing the edge of your hearing. Everywhere, small lives are stirring dot in the center of the street. A wooden cart creaks into motion. Its wheels, bound with iron, roll over the cobbles with a deep, groaning sigh. The man guiding it walks beside his ox, muttering soft encouragements to the animal, though the ox seems to need no urging. They've done this journey countless times. From an open doorway, the scent of baking bread drifts into the lane. It's warm, yeasty, and comforting, a quiet promise of breakfast to come. Inside, you can just glimpse a baker's apprentice, his hands coated in flour, kneading dough with the familiar rhythm of someone who does not think about his work. His hands know their duty dot as you continue walking. You come upon a small square. At its center, a stone well stands, its wooden bucket hanging still, as yet untouched. But not for long. A group of women is gathering, their soft voices murmuring as they arrange their water jugs and adjust their linen head coverings. Their conversation is gentle, filled with small gossip and idle remarks about the weather. The rhythm of their talk blends seamlessly with the creak of the well's crank. The splash of water as it pours into a jug. A dog trots past you, its nose close to the ground, searching for something, perhaps a scrap left from last night's meal. It pauses to sniff, then moves on, its tail wagging lazily. You notice how everything here moves slowly, deliberately, as if the town itself breathes in long, quiet sighs that there is no rush to the day, no blaring alarms, no hurried footsteps. Time, in 1347, does not race forward. It unfurls gently, patiently. The townfolk have no inkling of the storm that brews far beyond their borders. They don't know that ships are sailing westward, carrying more than cloth and spices. They don't know of the rumors whispered by merchants in distant cities. For them, this morning is like every other morning. Simple, predictable, safe as. You stroll towards the edge of town. You find a small field where a farmer and his son are already at work. The farmer moves with the quiet assurance of someone who has done this every morning of his life. His scythe sweeps through the tall grass with a soft, slicing hiss, leaving behind neat rows of cut stalks. His son gathers them into bundles, tying them with twine. The motion practice and fluid. You pause for a moment, simply listening to the soundscape, the whisper of the scythe, the soft grunt of the ox in the nearby plow, the distant melodic call of a bird greeting the morning dot. This is how life in 1347 begins. Not with fanfare, not with urgency, but with quiet labor and small rituals. You turn back toward the town, walking past homes where thin trails of smoke begin to rise from chimneys. In one cottage, through a slightly ajar shutter, you see a family gathered around a simple wooden table. A mother pours thin porridge into bowls while her children sit quietly, rubbing sleep from their eyes. The father, already dressed for work, ties a leather belt around his tunic. Their lives are modest, but they carry a calm dignity, a deep-rooted contentment in the familiar routines that shape their days. You pass an elderly man seated on a low stool outside his door, slowly mending a fishing net. His hands, though weathered, are steady and precise. He glances up as you walk by, offering a slight nod of acknowledgement, then returns to his task. The pace of his work is soothing, the delicate movement of fingers weaving and tightening, knotting and pulling. As if he and the net share a silent conversation, a cat lounges nearby, stretched out in a patch of sunlight that has just begun to peek over the roofline. It purrs softly, eyes half closed, basking in the quiet peace of the morning. The world is waking, gently, without fanfare. And you, a traveler from a distant future, are here to witness it, to feel it in your bones. No. One speaks of plagues, not yet. The only concerns are of weather, of the price of bread, of whether the harvest will be good. The worries are small, immediate, human dot, and yet somewhere far beyond this town, across oceans and deserts, a shadow stirs, a shadow no one here can see. But for now, the town breathes in peace dot as you stand in the square once more. The bell rings. Again, the sun, now fully risen, bathes the stone walls and thatched roofs in a soft golden glow. The world is awake. The day has begun. You take a slow breath, feeling the air fill your lungs, air that carries the same scents, sounds and textures as it has for centuries. And as you exhale, you realize this is how life feels just before. It begins to change, but not today. Today, life is still simple. You've woken into another day in 1347. The sun has risen higher now, soft and golden, warming the cobbled streets beneath your feet. The air is gentle, stirred by a light breeze. That carries with it the blended aromas of bread, earth, and wood smoke. Today, we'll take a slow walk through the heart of the town, the marketplace, where life, for now, carries on as it always has. Take a breath and follow me. The narrow lane you walk along widens ahead, opening like a quiet breath into the town's market square. The transition is subtle. One moment you are flanked by close, leaning houses whose upper stories nearly touch, and the next you step into a space that feels open, sunlit, and alive with gentle movement. Yet, it's not loud. This isn't the bustling, noisy marketplace of a city like Paris or Venice. This is a small town's heart, a place where commerce and community blend together in a slow, steady rhythm. The first thing you notice is the texture of sound. It doesn't strike you all at once, but builds softly, layer by layer. The creak of wooden carts unloading goods, the muffled thump of sacks hitting the ground, and the murmured exchanges between vendor and customer. There's no shouting, no frantic haggling, just a low, constant hum. The sound of people who had done this so many times that the motions are as natural as breathing dot as you step further into the square. Your senses are gently enveloped. The air is thick with the mingled sense of life. There is the sweetness of freshly baked bread, its crust still warm and crackling under the careful hands of the baker's wife, who arranges loaves in a neat, inviting stack. Interwoven with that is the pungent sharpness of salted fish, laid out on wooden slabs, their silver scales glinting like scattered coins in the morning sun. You catch a breeze laced with spice, cinnamon, cloves, and pepper, precious, expensive, and exotic. A spice merchant has set up a modest stall near the square's edge, his wares arranged carefully in small ceramic bowls. The colors are deep and rich, the rust red of ground paprika, the golden glow of saffron threads, the dark flecks of nutmeg. He watches passers-by with a serene patience, knowing that even if few can afford these treasures, many will still stop to admire them. You move slowly, without purpose, simply following the soft flow of bodies that weave gently through the square. The people here aren't in a hurry. They stop often to exchange news, to adjust a cartwheel, to admire a neighbor's basket of early apples. The voices around you blend into a low, comforting murmur, like a stream flowing gently over smooth stones. You catch fragments of conversations, an old woman lamenting the price of wool, a young apprentice boasting about his master's latest commission, a gossip about a merchant who returned from Genoa with strange tales of sickness in the east. But the words themselves feel less important than the sound they create. A gentle, human background that fills the air like birdsong. A group of children dash past you, their bare feet slapping lightly against the stone. They are chasing a stray dog who seems more amused than threatened by their pursuit. Their laughter is soft and breathy, not the piercing shrieks of wild play, but the subdued giggles of children who know the marketplace is not a place for chaos. You pause beside a stall where a potter is arranging his wares. Simple earthen, bowls, pitchers, and jugs, their clay surfaces still faintly dusted from the kiln. He moves each piece with care, not out of anxiety, but from the quiet pride of a craftsman. His hands are stained with the pale ochre of clay, his fingernails rimmed with fine dust. He catches your eye and offers a small nod, then returns to his task, humming a tune you don't recognize but feels timeless. The ground beneath your feet is uneven, patched with worn cobbles and stretches of packed earth. Every so often, a puddle from last night's rain reflects the soft blue of the sky. A wooden cart, its axles groaning gently, rolls past, its wheels splashing softly through the water, sending up a spray of tiny droplets that catch the sunlight. Like fleeting gems dot nearby, a tanner's stall is less fragrant. The sharp, acrid scent of cured leather mixes with the richer, oiler smell of raw hides. It's not unpleasant, but it's strong, and you find yourself drifting a few paces away toward the sweeter air of a fruit seller's stand. Here, apples are arranged in neat pyramids, their skins gleaming red and gold. A few pears rest in a wooden crate, their surfaces slightly mottled but fragrant. A girl, no more than 10, stands beside the stall, quietly reciting prices to herself. Preparing for her first solo sale of the day, the sun has climbed a little higher now, casting long, soft-edged shadows across the square. People are more numerous, but the atmosphere remains serene. There's a rhythm here that feels unchanging, as though this scene has played out in slightly different forms, every day for generations. The pace is dictated not by urgency, but by necessity. People come to the market because they must, but they linger because it is where life unfolds. You find yourself near a cloth merchant's stall, where bolts of fabric, coarse wool, rough linen, and a few precious rolls of finer imported silk are displayed. The colors are subtle, mostly earth tones, though a rich indigo bolt draws a small crowd. The merchant's wife, her hands quick and nimble, measures a length of fabric with a knotted cord. Her voice a soft murmur as she discusses price. Behind her, an apprentice boy beats dust from a larger roll of canvas, his movements sending up small clouds that shimmer in the sunlight. The air tastes faintly of dust for a moment, but it fades quickly, replaced again by the comforting, mingling sense of the square dot as you wander toward the far side of the market. You notice a group of monks standing quietly by a table laden with jars of honey, beeswax candles, and simple herbal salves. Their brown robes are worn and patched, their faces calm and patient. They don't call out to passers-by. They simply stand, offering a peaceful presence amid the soft bustle of trade. One monk adjusts a candle display, aligning the tapers with care. You catch a faint whiff of beeswax, sweet, mellow, and soothing. A bell tolls once from the church. Tower, not a summons, but a marker of time. The day is passing, though no one seems to mind. Here, time feels less like a thing to be chased and more like a quiet river that carries everyone gently along. You stop for a moment beside a fountain. At the square's edge, water trickles softly from a stone spout shaped like a lion's head, its surface worn smooth by countless hands and seasons. A woman is filling a clay jug, her movements unhurried, her attention drifting as she watches the market with quiet eyes. You realize, standing there, that this market, is more than a place of commerce. It is the town's heartbeat. It's where stories are shared, where alliances are forged, where lives intertwine in a tapestry of quiet, unassuming community. For now, the mood is light. People smile. They pause to speak to one another. But beneath it all, there is a subtle tension you almost don't notice. You hear it in the hushed tone of a merchant mentioning a ship delayed in the harbor. You see it in the fleeting glance of a trader looking toward the road as if expecting unwelcome news. The rumors are distant, soft and harmless for now, like a far-off storm cloud on a sunny day, but no one here truly believes that anything will change. Life has always been this way, and surely it will continue. You take another slow walk through the square, retracing your steps. The sounds, the scents, the textures, they all feel familiar now, comforting in their repetition. The wooden cartwheels still groan softly. The bread still fills the air with its warm aroma. The soft murmur of voices still flows around you, wrapping you in a cocoon of human presence. The sun has begun to dip lower now, casting long shadows across the cobbled streets. The marketplace has quieted. Stalls are being packed away with slow, careful hands, and carts roll lazily homeward, their wooden wheels groaning a tired lullaby. The town exhales, its daily labors folding into the soft embrace of evening. You walk with no particular purpose, following the rhythm of the town as it prepares for nightfall. The air has cooled slightly, and with it comes the faint scent of hearth fires rekindling in homes along the narrow lanes. Smoke rises in thin, lazy tendrils, curling into the sky and dissolving into the soft, fading light. You find yourself drawn toward a small tavern, tucked modestly beneath the sagging beams of a timber-framed house. Its wooden sign swings gently on rusted iron hinges, creaking softly as it sways. A simple carving of a loaf of bread and a jug of ale marks it as a place where townsfolk gather not just to drink, but to share the familiar comfort of human company. The doorway is low, and you duck slightly as you enter, stepping into the warm glow of candlelight dot inside. The air is thicker, scented with the mellow, sweet aroma of spiced wine and the faint tang of wood smoke. The walls are rough-hewn timber, darkened with age. Their surface is etched with the small, idle carvings of countless patrons. A low fire crackles in the hearth, its orange light flickering across the faces of a handful of townsfolk scattered around the room. Their conversations are hushed, intimate, like the soft rustling of dry leaves. You settle into a quiet corner, the wooden bench beneath you worn smooth by generations of weary bodies. The tavern keeper, a woman with sleeves rolled to her elbows and a linen scarf tied around her hair, sets a small cup of ale on the table without a word. Her movements are practiced, economical, as though she has been gliding between these tables her entire life. Is here, in this dim candlelit hush, that the whispers begin. At a table near the hearth, a group of merchants sit hunched over there. Cups, their faces lined with the weariness of long travels. They are not loud, but their voices carry in the quiet of the room, threading through the soft crackle of the fire and the faint clink of clay mugs. Their words drift to your ear in fragments, enough to piece together a story that seems two. distant to touch, yet intriguing enough to prick at the edges of curiosity. In Kaffa, they said, the Genoese ships. Not all of them made it back. The speaker's voice is low, conspiratorial, the kind of tone used for stories that should not be repeated, yet always are. Another voice, rougher, adds, some say it's the Mongols. They laid siege, but it wasn't arrows that killed them. A sickness. Like a curse. There is a pause, a shared glance among the men, as though they are weighing whether to continue. Then, in a softer tone, one says, I heard they flung bodies over the city walls. Dead ones. Plague struck. The smell alone was enough to kill. The tale is met with a gruff chuckle from an older man who shakes his head and mutters about old wives' tales. Yet even as he scoffs, his fingers trace slow, absent-minded circles on the rim of his mug, betraying a quiet unease. Another merchant leans in, lowering his voice, and begins to speak of a caravan from the east that never reached its destination. No one knows what happened, he says. But the desert has swallowed many things before. Could be sickness. Could be worse. You listen, not as an outsider, but as though these whispers are seeping into your bones. There is no urgency in their telling. The men do not sound afraid. Not yet. The plague they speak of is a distant storm cloud, far beyond the mountains, and sees its presence little more than a shadow stretching lazily westward. For now, it is a curiosity, a tale to fill the quiet moments of an evening. Much like stories of distant wars or the latest price of spices. Around you, other conversations continue, undisturbed by these rumors. At a nearby table, an elderly couple discuss the upcoming harvest, their voices gentle and slow. A group of younger men gamble with dice, their laughter subdued but genuine. The tavern feels cocooned in its own rhythm, the weight of the world outside softened by candlelight and a routine. And yet, the story of the sickness persists, weaving its way through the room like an invisible thread that it becomes clear that no one here truly understands what they're speaking of. The words plague and pestilence are familiar, but they carry the weight of ancient fears, more myth than memory. People speak of bad air, of divine punishment, of strange omens in the sky. Some mention sicknesses from long ago, but these are stories passed down by grandparents, not lived experience. The Black Death, though it does not yet carry that name, is still an unknown, a ghost without a face. The tavern keeper moves between tables, topping up mugs, offering small smiles. She pauses briefly by the merchant's table, listening without comment, then carries on with her work. You sense that she, too, has heard many such rumors before. Wars, famines, blights, these stories ebb and flow with the tides of trade. And the turning of seasons, most pass without consequence. But still, the whispers linger as the night deepens. The tavern grows quieter. The fire settles into a soft glow, and the conversation slow to a gentle murmur. You feel the weight of the wooden beams above you, the way the walls seem to gather the voices and hold them in a careful hush. There is something profoundly human about this space, a shared warmth, a fragile shield against the vast, unknowable. World beyond the town's edge, outside the streets are emptying. Through the warped glass of the tavern's small window, you see the faint glow of lanterns bobbing as townsfolk make their way home, their figures hunched beneath the gathering dark. The air outside has taken on a Christmas, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant wood smoke. Somewhere far off, a dog barks once, then falls silent inside. A final round of drinks is shared. The merchants, now more subdued, exchange quiet farewells, folding their stories back into the safe confines of memory, for tonight, at least. Tomorrow, the rumors will travel a little further. They'll be retold at another market, another hearth. Slowly, like a breath spreading across still water, the whispers will reach other ears. But for now, the plague remains a distant tale, hovering just beyond the boundary of true concern. Life in the town carries on. The bread will still be baked in the morning. The market will open. The church bells will toll. And yet, even as normalcy wraps around the townfolk like a warm blanket, The first subtle threads of unease have begun to weave into the fabric of their days. As you step back out into the cool night air. The town feels unchanged. The same worn cobbles beneath your feet. The same familiar creak of wooden shutters as families close their homes for the evening. But within you, the echo of those whispers remains. Faint, distant, yet persistent. It's not panic. Not yet. It's something quieter. A question left unanswered. A shadow glimpsed at the edge of the LAMPLIGHT. And as you walk slowly through the sleeping town, you understand that history never announces its arrival. It begins like this, in soft murmurs, in quiet taverns, in the spaces between certainty and doubt. For now, the town rests. The plague is still just a story, but not for long. Morning arrives slowly in this town. Not with the sudden rush of alarm bells or hurried footsteps, but with a gentle unfolding of sound and movement. The first light spills over the rooftops like a soft cloth, brushing against the weathered timbers of homes, slipping quietly into narrow lanes. You find yourself awake, not jolted, but stirred, as though the town itself has exhaled, readying. For another ordinary day. There is no urgency here. The people of 1347 know the rhythm of their work. It hums beneath their feet. It shapes their hands. It draws them into the same steady patterns as their parents and grandparents. Life is not measured by clocks, but by the slow arc of the sun, by the weight of a scythe in the hand, by the time it takes a loaf to rise in the oven. And today, like every other day, work begins before the town is truly awake. You step into the cool, crisp air, following the faint sound of a millstone turning. Its slow, grinding rhythm like the heartbeat of the morning. The baker's shop is already alive, though the street outside is nearly empty. Inside, the air is warm, dense with the rich yeast scent of dough. The baker's hands move with a quiet certainty, shaping loaves as naturally as breathing. The wooden table before him is dusted with flour, a soft white powder that clings to his fingers, to the folds of his apron, to the air itself. His wife works beside him, tending the oven, its mouth glowing with soft orange light. Neither speaks much. Their day is not one of conversation, but of rhythm. Knead, fold, turn, bake. Further along. You pass a blacksmith's forge. It fires. Not yet at full strength, but already breathing soft gusts of smoke into the morning sky. The blacksmith stands in the doorway, sleeves rolled, hammer resting lazily in his grip. He watches the street with quiet eyes as though weighing the day. Before it begins, soon his hammer will strike metal with a slow, deliberate cadence, each blow echoing down the lane. For now, there is stillness. Out beyond the town's edge, the fields begin to stir as well. The peasants are already at work, their figures bending. Over rows of earth, the soft scrape of scythes and hoes blending into the gentle rustle of morning breeze. The land demands patience, not haste. There is no rushing the growth of crops, no shortcut to the harvest. It is a labor of small movements, of repetition. You watch as a young boy follows his father, mimicking the swing of the scythe. His tool too large for him, yet his efforts earnest. Their voices are low, murmuring instructions and quiet jokes. The kind passed down through seasons of shared labor. The rhythm of work in this town is not frantic. It is not the feverish rush of factories or the relentless pace of machines. It is slow, deliberate, and intimate. Each task is known by heart, each movement repeated until it becomes a kind of quiet dance. The weaver at his loom, foot tapping the pedal, hands guiding the shuttle through the warp, creating patterns that his fingers know better than his eyes. The cooper, fitting iron bands onto wooden barrels with soft, measured taps. The tanner, stretching leather along wooden frames, his fingers rough, yet precise. In the town square. A merchant arranges his wares with careful hands. Bolts of cloth, stacks of earthenware, bundles of wool. He is not in a hurry. He knows that the market will flow at its own pace. Customers will come. They will examine. They will speak of other things before they buy. Transactions are not cold. Exchanges here. They are part of a larger, slower rhythm of community life. The church bells toll softly in the distance, not to summon, but to mark the passage of another hour. Their echoes drift lazily over rooftops, mixing with the soft clatter of hooves on cobblestones as a farmer guides his cart through the town's narrow lanes. The cart's wheels groan, their wooden rims worn smooth by years of faithful service. The farmer greets familiar faces with a nod, his words few but warm. In a world where labor fills every hour, words are used sparingly, each one a choice, not a habit as you walk. You notice how hands are never idle. Even in moments of rest, people mend, carve, weave. A woman sits on a low stool outside her home, patching a tear in her husband's tunic. Beside her, an elderly man whittles a piece of wood, not for sale, but simply to keep his fingers busy. These are not tasks done for leisure. They are the quiet, necessary stitches that hold daily life together. The air grows warmer as the sun climbs, and with it, the streets grow softly busier. Children run errands, carrying small baskets of bread or bundles of herbs, their feet light against the stone. Apprentices sweep shop fronts, their brooms stirring. Up lazy clouds of dust. Life unfolds with the gentleness of a well-worn routine. There's no grand event, no spectacle. Just the slow, reassuring hum of daily labor. You pause at a carpenter's workshop, where the scent of freshly cut wood spills. Into the street. Inside, the carpenter moves with the precision of one who knows his craft deeply. His plane glides over the surface of a plank, shaving off thin, curling ribbons of wood that fall softly to the floor. His apprentice watches intently, mirroring. The movement with a smaller tool, his brow furrowed in concentration. There is no frustration here, no impatience. Skills are passed not in hours, but in seasons. Learning is a slow unfolding. Just like everything else, the noon bell rings, and with it comes a pause. The pace of work doesn't halt, but it softens. Workers lean on tools, share a bite of bread, exchange a few words. In a small garden behind a stone wall, a group of washerwomen sit beside wooden tubs. Their hands red from the cold water, yet their voices light, sharing stories as they work. Laughter here is soft, private. It ripples gently, never loud enough to disturb the calm flow of the day. Afternoon brings a quiet return to tasks. But with a slower pace, the sun's warmth invites brief moments of idleness. A shoemaker wiping his brow, a farmer pausing to drink from a leather flask, a scribe stretching his cramped fingers beside a narrow window. Yet, even in rest, there is a sense of movement, a knowledge that the day's work continues, not out of urgency, but necessity. Throughout it all, there is a strange comfort in the sameness. The town's life is a tapestry of small, repeated acts. Kneading dough, hammering iron, spinning wool. These tasks, simple and unremarkable, are the very foundation of survival. There is no thought of change, no expectation that life should be anything but this. A series of quiet labors, shared across generations, each day flowing into the next like pages in a well-worn book. Yet beneath this ordinary rhythm, there is a faint, almost imperceptible undercurrent. It is not fear, not yet. But you sense it in the way a conversation lingers a moment longer, in the glance a merchant gives toward the distant road. The rumors from the east have not yet altered daily life, but they have begun to settle like dust on the edges of thought. So work continues. The bread must be baked, the fields tended, the cloth woven. Routine holds the world together, even when whispers of its unraveling drift quietly on the wind dot as the sun begins its slow descent. The town prepares to fold back into evening. The forge cools, its embers glowing softly as the blacksmith sets down his hammer. The baker's shop is quiet now, its shelves empty but for a few stray crumbs. The fields lie in golden light, their rows tidy and expectant. You watch as shutters are drawn closed, not out of fear, but from habit, as families gather for the quiet rituals of supper. Tonight, as the fires crackle and the candles flicker, there may be more talk of distant sicknesses, of ships that did not return, of cities too far away to feel real. But these stories, for now, remain at the edge of things. Tomorrow will come, and with it, the same slow rhythm of labor. The sides will swing, the loaves will rise. The hum of daily life will continue, soft and enduring. For now, the plague is still a story, and work steady, familiar, and essential is the town's quiet anchor. The morning air feels a little different today. Not colder, not warmer, just quieter. You notice it as you walk through the town's familiar lanes, past the shuttered windows and low doorways. The usual sounds of dawn are there, the distant murmur of voices, the creak of wooden carts, but there's a softness, as though the town is speaking in a whisper. You follow the narrow road that leads toward the harbor. It's not a large port, but it is the town's pulse, the place where news and goods arrive, where ships bring stories from distant lands, and where the steady rhythm of trade breathes life into the market stalls. The sea itself is calm this morning, its surface smooth and glistening under a pale sun. You can hear the gentle slap of water against stone, a soothing, repetitive hush, like a mother's shushing of a restless child, but something is missing. The docks are not empty, but they are sparse. There are fewer ships than you remember. The usual clutter of masts rising like a forest against the sky has thinned. The ropes that tether boats to wooden posts lie slack, as though even they have less work to do. You count them idly, without meaning to. 1, 2, 3 small fishing boats, their sails furled, their decks bare. A single merchant vessel, its hull sitting heavy in the water, as if weighed down by more than cargo. You had grown used to the soft bustle of the harbor, the calls of sailors hauling crates, the squawk of gulls circling overhead, the endless, comforting shuffle of goods being unloaded and inspected. But today those sounds feel diminished. The gulls still wheel lazily in the sky, but their cries seem half-hearted. The sailors move with a certain slowness, their voices low, their steps unhurried. There's no rush, no eager expectation of new arrivals, because today very few have. Come dot, you pass by a row of crates stacked against a warehouse wall. They are marked with familiar symbols, bolts of cloth from Flanders, olive oil from the south, bundles of dried fish. But there are gaps where more crates should be. Empty spaces that in past weeks would have been filled with spices, silks, perhaps even rare curiosities from the east. The emptiness isn't jarring. It's subtle, like a missing note in a familiar melody. A merchant stands nearby, his arms folded, gaze fixed on the water. He doesn't notice you at first. His attention is drawn to the open horizon, watching for sails that aren't there. When he does glance your way, his expression is one of quiet resignation. He doesn't speak of it, but his posture says enough. Fewer ships are arriving. The reasons, however, are cloaked in that same quiet uncertainty that has begun to settle. Over the town like a fine dust dot, no one here truly knows why the ships are fewer. Some say it's the war to the south, disrupting trade routes. Others mutter about storms that have made certain crossings treacherous. But beneath these practical explanations, there lingers a quieter thought, one that is not spoken aloud yet, but you can feel it in the way glances are exchanged. A sickness, far away, yet inching closer. You walk further along the docks, the wooden planks beneath your feet droning softly with each step. The scent of salt hangs in the air, mixed with the faint, sour tang of fish. A small group of fishermen sits mending nets, their hands moving deftly, fingers nodding and looping in familiar patterns. Their conversation is hushed. They speak of a neighboring port town where a ship arrived late, its crew thin, several missing. No one knows where they went, one man says, his eyes focused on the net before him. Another shakes his head, not in fear, but in that slow, weary way that acknowledges the world's unpredictability. In a time where survival is tied to the whims of weather, harvests, and distant rulers, news of misfortune is always met with quiet acceptance. There's no panic, just a subtle shifting of mood. The harbor, usually the town's most animated place, now feels like it's holding its breath in the small market square adjacent to the docks. The signs of change are just as gentle, just as easy to overlook. If one isn't paying attention, the vendors are still here. The baker with his neat rows of loaves, the woman selling bundles of herbs, the potter arranging his wares with careful precision. But their numbers are fewer. The vibrant clutter of stalls has thinned, creating wider spaces where before there was a tight, bustling maze of goods and gossip. You notice the absence of familiar faces. The spice merchant, with his vivid silks draped over his stall, is not here today, nor is the wine seller who usually arrives with a cart of barrels, his booming laughter filling the air. Their absence is not marked with questions. No one seems surprised. It's as if the town has collectively decided to let these small disappearances pass without comment. A woman selling wool catches your glance as you pass. She smiles, but there's a tiredness behind it. When you inquire gently about the missing, trader, she shrugs. Travels slower these days? She says softly. The roads aren't as safe. Illness in the cities, or so they say. She doesn't elaborate. She doesn't need to. The words hang in the air, acknowledged but not pursued. You watch as a young apprentice carries a basket of goods through the square. His steps light, but his eyes cautious. He moves through the open spaces with a quiet grace, as though avoiding invisible obstacles. His path is a little longer now, the spaces between vendors a little wider, yet life continues. Transactions are made. Goods are examined and exchanged. The market's heartbeat is slower, but it has not stopped. As the day unfolds, you sense how the town is adjusting, almost imperceptibly. The harbor may be quieter, but its routines persist. Fishermen still cast their nets. Merchants still arrange their wares, even if fewer hands are needed to do so. The town is not a place of sudden changes. It does not react with alarm. It absorbs these small shifts, folding them into its daily rhythm with the same patience it applies to poor harvests or delayed shipments. But beneath the surface, there is a new texture to the air. It's in the way conversations taper off when strangers pass by. It's in the subtle glances toward the empty road leading out of town. It's in the unspoken understanding that news, when it comes, travels slower than fear. People continue to work because there is no other choice. But their movements have grown just a fraction more careful. Their greetings just a little more reserved. In the afternoon, a small vessel arrives at the dock. It is not greeted with the usual enthusiasm. The unloading is quiet, methodical. The crew looks tired, their faces drawn, their words few. You watch as crates are stacked on the stone pier, but no one lingers. The ship's arrival feels more like a necessity than an event. No news stories are shared, no laughter exchanged. The ship came. It unloaded. That is enough for today. As the sun dips lower, the town begins to exhale once more, folding into its evening routine. The docks grow still. The market winds down. The subtle gaps in ships, in goods, in faces remain, but they are not yet wounds. They are absences that the town has learned to navigate around. For now, you walk back through the streets as the light fades, the familiar sense of hearth fires and evening meals wafting through open windows. The town feels as it always has. Cobblestones beneath your feet, the soft creak of shutters closing, the low murmur of voices inside. Yet you carry with you the quiet realization that something has shifted. Not can be pointed to directly. Not yet. But the fabric of daily life has begun to thin at its edges, where trade routes falter and whispers grow louder. The Black Death has not yet arrived, but its shadow has touched the docks. Tomorrow, life will continue. The bread will be baked, the fields will be tended, and the town's rhythms will repeat themselves. But in the spaces between, in the quiet gaps left by missing ships and absent traders, the town will begin to notice the world is changing. Slowly, quietly, inevitably, as the sun lifts slowly into a pale sky, casting long, soft beams through the narrow alleys of the town. You find yourself drawn to a small wooden door tucked beneath a sloping roof of uneven tiles. There's no sign to announce its purpose, but the faint herbal scent drifting from within tells you enough. This is where the healer works, not a physician in the grand sense, not one of the learned doctors from the distant cities, but a local. Healer, a woman whose knowledge of plants and poultices has been passed down through quiet instruction and careful observation. Her shop is a place of small, ordinary remedies, not grand cures. You step inside, greeted by a dim, earthy glow. The only light filters through a single round window, its glass so wavy that the outside world appears as a blur of colors. The air is thick with the mingled fragrances of dried lavender, crushed sage, and the sharp, almost medicinal tang of vinegar. The room is a quiet clutter of shelves, every inch lined with glass jars. Bundles of herbs tied with twine and small earthen pots filled with salves of varying shades of green and brown. The healer moves slowly through her space, her step soft, against the worn wooden floor. She does not rush. There's no urgency in her work, only the steady rhythm of routine. She selects a handful of dried rosemary from a hook on the wall, crumbles it between her fingers, and lets the fragments fall into a small bowl. The pestle she uses is smooth from years of use, its stone surface perfectly fitted to her hand. You watch as she begins to grind the rosemary into a fine powder, the soft rhythmic sound of stone filling the stillness. This is what medicine looks like in 1347. Not gleaming tools or precise instruments, but hands stained with plant. Oils, shelves crowded with nature's attempts at healing. The healer believes, as most do in the balance of humors, blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile, and that sickness is often a sign that one of these has fallen into imbalance. Her remedies are crafted to restore harmony, to coax the body back into alignment with the world's delicate order. You notice a collection of leeches, lazily coiled in a small water-filled bowl. They are used to draw out bad blood, a common practice, though its true effectiveness is doubtful. On another shelf rests a row of clay bottles labeled with careful script, tinctures of wormwood, horehound, and elderberry. These are not cures, but comforts meant to ease coughs, soothe fevers, or calm an uneasy stomach. The healer prepares a small sachet of herbs, wrapping it in a square of linen. This will be hung in a sick room, its scent believed to purify the air, to keep the invisible poisons at bay. The idea of miasma, bad air, is widely accepted as a cause of illness. To ward it off, people fill their homes with the sharpness of vinegar-soaked cloths, or the sweetness of rosemary and thyme. Windows are open to let the foul air escape. Even on cold days as you observe her work, you begin to understand how much of a medieval medicine is about rituals of care. The grinding of herbs, the stirring of concoctions, the careful placement of amulets and charms. These acts may not cure diseases, but they offer a sense of control. In a world where sickness arrives unseen and unexplained, the process of remedy making is as much a comfort for the healer as it is for the ailing. On a nearby table lies a small book, its pages yellowed and softened by countless fingers. It's a collection of recipes and notes, scribbled in a mix of Latin and a local tongue. The entries speak of poultices for sores, draughts to ease childbirth, and mixtures of honey and vinegar for persistent coughs. Each remedy is a thread in a tapestry of tradition, woven from centuries of trial, error, and inherited wisdom. There are more curious objects here, too. Small packets of ground horn, believed to hold medicinal power, sit beside tiny pouches of powdered amber. A bowl of dried rose petals is nestled next to a jar of crushed snail shells, their use perhaps more symbolic than practical. In the corner, hanging from a nail, is a string of dried garlic bulbs, a common ward against infection. Their pungent aroma a sharp contrast to the gentler herbs. Today, a young woman arrives with her child who has developed a fever. The healer greets them with quiet kindness, placing a gentle hand on the child's forehead. She prepares a simple infusion, chamomile and mint steeped in warm water, to soothe the fever's bite. She murmurs reassurances, her voice soft, almost like a chant. as she hands the mother a small cloth sachet filled with herbs to hang near the child's bed. The treatment is simple. It's not a cure. But in this moment, it is enough. You realize how much faith resides in these small acts. The healer knows she cannot stop the illnesses that sweep through the town, but she can offer presence, care, and the quiet dignity of tending to the unwell with her hands and heart. Medicine here is not about eradicating disease. It is about enduring it, surviving it, and finding small comforts along the way. On the far wall, an assortment of masks hangs like strange beaked birds. They are rudimentary, more symbolic and functional, filled with dried herbs and flowers meant to purify the air inhaled through their curved noses. Though not yet widely used, these masks are a precursor to what will soon become the image of the plague doctor. For now, they hang in quiet stillness, a curiosity more than necessity. Outside, the town continues its slow routine, unaware that the healer's shop holds within it the quiet preparation for a coming storm. As ships grow fewer and whispers of sickness drift in from afar, healers like her will soon find their craft overwhelmed. Yet today she moves with the same calm precision, grinding herbs, mixing salves, and wrapping small parcels of hope in linen and twine. Before you leave, she hands you a small bundle, a sachet filled with lavender rosemary. Good for the air, she says gently. Whether it will protect you or not is uncertain, but you accept it with quiet gratitude. In 1347, medicine is as much about belief as it is about practice. And sometimes belief is a remedy in itself. As you step back into the light of the afternoon, the healer returns to her work, her movements as steady as the tide. She will continue to grind, to mix, to tend, not because she holds the power to stop what is coming, but because the act of caring in itself is a quiet form of resistance. The plague has not yet reached the town. But in the healer's shop, preparations have already begun, in the only way they can, slowly, quietly, one herb at a time as the soft light of dawn stretches across the rooftops. The sound of a single bell rises into the morning air. Its tone is neither hurried nor loud, a gentle, deliberate toll that rolls over the town in slow waves. You stand still for a moment, listening as the bell's echo wraps around the stone walls, filters down narrow alleys, and reaches quietly into homes where shutters are just now being opened. It's a sound that has lived in these streets for as long as anyone can remember. The church bell is the heartbeat of the town, its rhythm marking the passage of days, of lives. Today, as you walk toward the old stone church at the town center, you notice how many others are moving in the same direction. There's no rush, no sense of alarm. People simply flow toward the church as part of their morning, their feet finding familiar paths on cobbled stones. Inside, the air feels different, cooler, quieter. The thick stone walls embrace the space with a stillness that seems to hush every sound. The faint scent of beeswax drifts through the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of old wood and damp stone. You can hear the soft rustle of fabric as parishioners settle onto worn benches, their movements unhurried, their gestures gentle. The church is modest. Its walls are plain, save for a few faded frescoes that depict saints and simple biblical scenes. A single narrow window of colored glass casts a slender beam of colored light onto the floor, where dust motes dance in the air, drifting in slow, lazy spirals. There's no grandeur here, only the quiet beauty of a place well worn by countless footsteps and whispered prayers dot at the front. A priest stands with a small group of acolytes, their white robes softly glowing in the dim light. The service begins. Without announcement, without fanfare, a low chant sung by a few voices begins to weave through the space. The melody is simple, repetitive, and soothing. It's not meant to stir passion, but to cradle the mind, to guide it gently into a rhythm of reflection. As the chant continues, you notice how people's postures soften. Shoulders lower, hands fold together, eyes grow still. These rituals, repeated daily, offer more than spiritual guidance. they offer structure. In a world where so much is uncertain, the church provides a place where actions are known, where words follow familiar patterns, and where time slows down. You watch as a woman lights a thin beeswax candle and places it carefully among others. At a side altar, the soft glow of countless small flames flickers against the stone, each light a silent plea, a hope, a remembrance. The act of lighting a candle here is quiet and personal, yet it connects her to everyone else in the room, all offering their own small flames into the growing warmth. Rumors of sickness, of distant cities troubled by a creeping illness, have begun to find their way into sermons, but not as warnings, not as dramatic announcements, rather as gentle reminders of life's fragility. The priest's voice is calm as he speaks of compassion, of patience, of trusting in divine order. He does not speak of panic, nor does he stir fear. The church's role is not to forecast doom, but to offer a space where, even amidst growing uncertainty, one can find a kind of peace dot after the service. A procession forms. It is small, almost informal, but it moves with quiet purpose through the streets. A few townsfolk carry simple wooden crosses, others carry small icons, and the priest walks at the front, his hands clasped. The procession is not loud. There are no shouted prayers, no urgent chants. Instead, the voices rise in a soft murmur, a wave of sound that barely lifts above the shuffling of feet on stone dot as they pass. You notice how shutters open briefly. Faces appearing in windows to watch the slow-moving group. There is no spectacle here. It is a procession born of routine, of tradition, yet in recent weeks, these walks have become more frequent. Not because of any direct threat, but because of the feeling, quiet and persistent, that the world is shifting in ways unseen. You follow them as they circle the town's edges, passing fields where laborers pause to cross themselves. Even those who do not join the procession feel its presence. The act of walking together, of reciting the same prayers, offers a kind of invisible thread that ties the community into one, a reassurance that no matter what may come from the distant. Roads are across the sea. Here, in this moment, they stand together dot by midday. The procession returns to the church, and life resumes its usual pace. Yet you notice how many linger inside, lighting more candles, kneeling in silent reflection. For some, the rituals are a shield, not a barrier against sickness, but a way to maintain order in their hearts. For others, it is simply habit. Rhythm as essential as eating or sleeping dot in the afternoon. A smaller gathering assembles for the blessing of water. A large basin sits at the altar, and the priest performs a slow, deliberate blessing, tracing signs into the air, his voice low and steady. People come forward, cupping water into their hands, touching it to their foreheads, their lips, their chests. The water is cool, the gestures simple, but each movement carries with it the weight of centuries of belief. The rituals are not designed to ward off the plague. No one here understands germs or contagion or the mechanisms of disease. Yet in a deeper way, these acts, the lighting of candles, the tolling of bells, the murmured prayers, are a kind of medicine. They soothe the mind, offer a sense of order, and remind everyone that they are part of something larger, something timeless dot as evening falls. You step outside once more. The air is cool, touched by the scent of wood smoke as hearth fires are. Lit in homes along the narrow lanes. The bell tolls again, a softer, more distant sound now, signaling the day's end. Windows glow with candlelight, their flickering warmth a quiet defiance against the gathering night. You realize how much of life in 1347 is carried by these small, repeating acts. In a time before headlines, before instant news, before the sharp shocks of modern alerts, people feel the world changing through these gentle shifts. More processions, longer prayers, more candles lit. Fear does not arrive with a shout, but with a quiet sigh, and so life continues. Bread is baked, fields are tended, yet in the spaces between these tasks, more prayers are whispered, more flames are kindled. It is not panic that fills the air, but a soft, growing awareness that something unknown moves beyond the towns walls. But for now, within the stone embrace of the church, with its candles and bells, life holds a quiet, steady rhythm. And that, perhaps, is enough. It is early morning, and the town's harbor lies still beneath a veil of soft mist. The sea is calm, its surface barely rippling, as if the water itself is reluctant to stir. From the shore, you can see the outline of ships resting quietly in the bay, their masts rising like fingers into the pale sky. The harbor, once a lively place of voices, footsteps, and clattering cargo, feels subdued today, its usual rhythm slowed to a hush. You walk along the stone quay, where ropes lie coiled neatly beside wooden crates. The scent of salt and damp wood hangs in the air, mingling with a faint trace of fish that lingers from yesterday's catch. A few dock workers move about, their movements unhurried, their conversations muted. Life continues, but there's a subtle change, a thinning of the usual crowd, a cautiousness in the way people give each other space, as if an invisible ripple of unease has begun to spread. Out on the water, a ship approaches. It is not a grand vessel, but a modest merchant ship, its hull dark and weathered from countless journeys across the sea. There is nothing remarkable about its appearance. It glides toward the dock with a slow, deliberate grace, its sails slackening as it nears the shore. To the townfolk, it is just another arrival, one of many that come and go with the tides. But as you watch, you notice something strange. The ship's deck, usually bustling with crew preparing for docking, is eerily quiet. A single figure moves, sluggishly near the bow, adjusting ropes with a kind of mechanical slowness. No shouts, no greetings. Just the creak of wood and the soft slap of water against the hull. When the ship finally comes to rest against the quay, there's no flurry of activity. A few dock workers step forward, but even they seem hesitant, their usual jokes and casual chatter absent. The crew does not descend immediately. Instead, a small group of men appears at the rail, their faces pale, their movements deliberate but lacking the usual energy of sailors eager to be ashore. One of them calls out to the harbor, "Master," in a voice that carries a brittle edge, requesting permission to unload their cargo. There's no mention of sickness, no alarms raised. The ship's logs, if anyone were to check them, would list the usual ports of call: Constantinople, Messina, Genoa, with nothing to suggest what has traveled within the ship's wooden belly. The cargo is ordinary: bolts of cloth, jars of oil, bundles of spices. Yet, hidden in the dark crevices of the hold, within sacks of grain or in the fur of unseen rats, the plague has already made its journey. The unloading begins slowly. Crates are hoisted onto the quay, their contents examined and recorded with the same routine as always. But the dock workers are fewer today. Some have chosen to stay home, citing vague ailments or simply not feeling right. There is no panic, only a quiet, growing absence. You stand back, observing the scene. There's a stillness to it all, a sense that everything is moving just slightly slower than usual. No one speaks of illness aloud, yet there is an unspoken understanding that this ship is different, not because of what it carries in its cargo, but because of what it carries in its silence. A young apprentice leans against a stack of crates, his eyes scanning the ship's deck with curiosity tinged by unease. He notices, as you do, how the sailors avoid touching each other, how they move as though weighed down by more than just fatigue. One sailor, coughing quietly into his sleeve, catches your eye before quickly looking away. It's a small moment, but in it you sense the edge of something beginning as the morning unfolds. The cargo finds its way into the town. Porters carry bundles through narrow streets, their footsteps echoing against stone walls. Merchants oversee deliveries with their usual haggling, but the transactions feel muted, as if wrapped in a layer of invisible gauze. Life continues. Shops open. Bakers prepare their ovens. Yet the air feels heavier, as if the town itself is holding its breath. No proclamations are made. No warnings are issued. The ship's arrival is recorded, its goods dispersed, and by the afternoon it is just another entry in the harbor master's ledger. But to those who watched its docking, to those who sensed the stillness in the crew's movements, a seed of discomfort has been quietly planted. The townfolk return to their routines, but with a subtle shift. There are more glances over shoulders, more pauses between words, as if people are listening for something they cannot yet name. The ship remains anchored at the quay, its tattered flag fluttering listlessly in the breeze, a silent harbinger of what lies ahead by evening, as the sun dips low and casts the harbor in a golden hush. The town settles back into its familiar rhythms. The market square grows quiet. The last of the dock workers finish their tasks, their boots tapping softly against the stones as they walk home. The ship, now seemingly empty, rests in stillness, its darkened hold concealing the invisible threat that has come ashore. No one knows yet. No one understands how this quiet arrival will ripple outward. But something has shifted in the air, faint, like the first, almost imperceptible breath of a coming storm. As night falls, and the streets grow empty, the ship sits, silently its work done. The plague has landed, not with shouts or cries, but with the gentle creak of a wooden hull and the unremarkable unloading of crates. Tomorrow, life will go on as usual, but nothing will be quite the same. Morning comes softly, as it always does. The first light spills gently across the rooftops, painting the narrow cobbled streets in hues of pale gold. The air is crisp, touched with the faintest breath of the sea. But today, as you step outside and make your way toward the market square, the town feels quieter, not empty, not abandoned, but softer, as though the very walls have chosen to hold their breath. You walk slowly, your footsteps tapping lightly against the stones. The streets are not deserted, yet they seem to stretch wider than before. A woman pulls open the shutters of her window, her movements careful, her eyes flicking down to the street, as if weighing whether today feels safe enough to step outside. Across the lane, a baker is at work, but instead of his usual bustling preparation, only a few loaves are set out, their aroma drifting gently in the still air. The market square, once a vibrant tapestry of voices and movement, unfolds before you now in a muted scene. A handful of stalls are open, their canvas awnings fluttering faintly in the breeze. Vendors arranged their goods with deliberate slowness, apples placed one by one in neat rows. Bolts of fabric smoothed carefully, as though the simple act of tidying might restore a sense of order. But there are fewer voices, fewer hands, spaces that once thrummed with chatter now hold only a soft hum of distant conversation. You notice gaps where familiar faces should be. The spice merchant from the eastern corner, whose bold laughter would usually greet every passerby, is absent today. His stall stands empty, the wooden frame bare, as though waiting patiently for his return. A few townsfolk murmur quietly about illness, or perhaps a long journey, but no one says it with conviction. These absences are not yet met with alarm only. With a quiet acceptance, as though life has simply slowed down. As you stroll past a stall selling dried herbs, the vendor nods to you, offering a faint smile. Her baskets, once overflowing, now hold smaller bundles. You can hear the soft rustle of her hands tying sprigs of rosemary and lavender, their scents blending with the faint trace of damp stone. She does not mention the rumors that drift through town, stories of sickness arriving on ships, of strange fevers in distant cities. Yet her eyes, when they meet yours, hold a flicker of knowing. The sounds of the market are softer now. The sharp clatter of coins has become a subdued jingle. The haggling of prices is more subdued, almost whispered. Carts pass by less frequently, their wooden wheels creaking gently over the stones. A boy leads a donkey through the square, its slow, rhythmic hoofbeats filling the air where once dozens of footsteps would have blended into a lively chorus. You pause beside a stall where a fishmonger sits quietly, his catch of the day spread in a modest display. He doesn't call it to customers as he usually would. Instead, he sits with a knife in hand, scaling a fish with slow, practiced strokes. The soft scrape of metal against skin is the only sound between you. He glances up, offers a small nod, but says nothing. Words seem unnecessary here. as if both of you are sharing an unspoken understanding that something is changing, though no one dares to name it fully. Beyond the square, the church bell tolls, its deep, steady sound rolling over the rooftops. It is not a signal of alarm, just the usual mark of passing time. But today its echo lingers a little longer in the still air, as if the town is listening more closely. You continue walking, noticing how people are beginning to give each other a little more space. Conversations happen with subtle distance. Hands gesture cautiously, and moments of eye contact are quickly broken. It is not fear, not yet, but a growing mindfulness. A collective quieting dot, an elderly man sits on a bench near the fountain, his cane resting beside him. You watch as he feeds crumbs to a pair of pigeons, his actions slow and unhurried. Life, in these small moments, continues with its familiar rhythms. Yet, you can sense it, the market breathes more shallowly now. The square, though not empty, feels more fragile, as though a thin layer of silence has settled over it. Softening every sound, every step dot at the far edge of the market, a group of townsfolk gathers in hushed conversation. You catch fragments of their words mentions of empty ships, of traders who have not returned, of strange coughs that seem to linger longer than they should, but no one raises their voice. These stories pass quietly, like ripples in still water, spreading through the market not with panic, but with a cautious murmur dot by midday. The square begins to thin further. Vendors pack their wares with a care that feels more thoughtful than usual. No one is rushing, yet no one seems eager to linger. A cart rolls by, its driver keeping his face partially covered with a cloth, more out of habit than instruction. The wind picks up slightly, tugging at the empty spaces between stalls, as if the town itself is gently shifting. Adjusting to the new emptiness dot as you stand in the heart of the square, you realize how much of life is built upon the quiet assumptions of normalcy, how markets, with their bustling chaos, feel eternal, unchanging. Yet here, in the slow shrinking of daily routines, in the gentle absences of familiar faces, you sense how change arrives not with shouts, but with silences dot by evening. The market square will fall into a deeper stillness. Lanterns will flicker. In fewer windows, conversations will drift more softly through the narrow streets. But for now, the town continues not with fear, but with a quiet, cautious breath, as if waiting to see what tomorrow might bring. The morning is still and hushed, as if the town has settled into a rhythm of quieter days. The air carries the scent of damp earth mixed with faint traces of rosemary and thyme. As you step into the narrow street, you notice a small gathering of townsfolk. Their heads turn toward a figure moving slowly down the lane. They do not call out to him. They simply watch, curiosity and caution mingling in their eyes. The figure is unlike anyone you've seen here before. Draped in a long dark robe that brushes against the cobblestones with every step, he walks with a measured, deliberate pace. His face is hidden beneath a beaked mask, long and curved, resembling the sharp beak of a bird, its hollow glass eyes reflecting the soft morning light. This is a plague doctor. The beak of the mask is filled with herbs, lavender, rose petals, cloves, mint, all thought to purify the air, to shield. The doctor from the invisible miasma is believed to carry sickness. The faint aroma of these herbs drifts behind him, a delicate trail of perfume that lingers in the quiet street. He holds a wooden cane, which taps lightly with every step, a subtle rhythm that echoes in the stillness. You follow him from a respectful distance, watching as he stops before a small home marked with a chalk symbol on its door. The townfolk know what that mark means now. It is not announced loudly, but it is a household where sickness has crept inside. The doctor raises his cane, gently knocking on the wooden door, and waits. There's no rush, no urgency. Everything unfolds with a slow, almost ceremonial. Calm dot when the door opens, a figure appears. Tired eyes, a face lined with worry. Words are exchanged quietly, muffled through cloths and masks. The doctor listens, nods, then steps inside, his dark robe brushing the threshold as he disappears. Into the dimness, you wait outside. standing beneath a hanging basket of withered herbs. The street remains silent, except for the faint flutter of laundry on a line and a soft cooing of pigeons resting on a nearby roof. Minutes pass. The doctor emerges. There is no dramatic proclamation, no flurry of action. He simply adjusts his gloves, murmurs a few words to the household, and moves on. You notice how his presence, though strange and unfamiliar, brings a certain comfort, a sign that someone is trying to understand. To act, even if their tools are simple and their knowledge is limited. As you continue walking, you see more of these figures appearing in the town. Some are local healers, dressed in their everyday garments, clutching bundles of herbs or small satchels of ointments. Others, like the beaked doctors, are newcomers, their masks and dark robes setting them apart. They move calmly through the streets, visiting homes, offering remedies made of vinegar, rose water, and crushed herbs. Remedies that, in truth, can do little to stop what is coming, but are given nonetheless as small acts of care. Inside a healer's workshop, you watch as a young apprentice prepares a poultice. The pestle moves in slow, steady circles, grinding dried lavender and camphor into a fine powder. The scent rises gently into the air, filling the room with a soothing, medicinal sweetness. Glass jars line the shelves, filled with dried marjoram, sage, and rue, each labeled in careful script, though their true power lies more in tradition than in science. The healer speaks softly as she works, explaining how these mixtures are meant to balance the body's humors, to cleanse bad air, to calm the fevers. You nod, listening to her words, though both of you understand that these treatments are more ritual than cure. Yet, in a time when little is known, such rituals provide a framework of comfort, a rhythm to follow amidst uncertainty. Outside, a procession of robed doctors passes through the marketplace, their perfumed masks gently swaying with each step. Their presence is not met with fear, but with a watchful silence. People step aside, giving them space, murmuring quiet prayers as they pass. Children peek out from behind their mother's skirts, their eyes wide, curious about these bird-like figures who move with such careful grace. You notice how the town, while subdued, continues to breathe. Bakers still knead their dough, the rhythmic thump of fists against flour-dusted boards echoing softly. A blacksmith's hammer rings out in the distance, though its strikes seem slower now, as if even the iron is listening to the quiet around it. Life has not stopped. It has simply softened, adapted to the growing presence of something unseen. In the church. A few townsfolk light candles, their flames flickering in the cool air. The plague doctors, too, pause here sometimes, their dark silhouettes blending with the shadows cast by stone arches. You can hear the faint murmurs of prayers, the soft rustle of robes, the subtle clink of glass vials being placed carefully on stone altars. These are not scenes of panic, but of quiet persistence. People clinging to rituals, to remedies, to anything that feels solid in a world beginning to shift beneath their feet. As the day wanes, and the sky turns a soft shade of amber, the plague doctors return to their quarters, their masks placed gently upon wooden stands, their gloves laid out to dry. You imagine how, in the stillness of their rooms, they too wonder if their efforts will be enough, if the fragrant herbs and careful ministrations can hold back what has begun to seep into the town's very breath. Night falls gently over the town. The streets grow quiet once more, save for the faintest echoes of a distant church bell and the soft rustle of wind against closed shutters. The plague doctors, their masks resting silently, become a symbol not of fear, but of humanity's quiet. Attempts to understand, to care, even when the answers remain out of reach. The morning air is quiet, even more so than before. It wraps around the narrow streets like a soft, invisible shroud, muffling every sound and movement. You step outside, into this hush, noticing how the town feels suspended, as if each building and cobblestone is holding its breath. The world is still turning, but now it does so with a softer rhythm, a cautious slowness. You take a familiar path through the winding alleys, past shuttered windows and doorways where no one stands to greet the day. In place of the usual morning, bustle, the greetings, the clatter of carts. The murmur of vendors preparing their stalls, you find only small, scattered signs of life. A woman sweeping her doorstep with slow, deliberate strokes. A man carrying a small bundle of firewood, his steps measured and quiet. These are not scenes of alarm. Rather, they feel like a town carefully tiptoeing through its own routines. As you pass by familiar homes, you begin to notice subtle changes. A chalk mark drawn hastily upon a door, faded but visible. Shutters that once opened with the first light now remain firmly closed, their wooden slats sealed tight against the world. Yet there are no cries, no visible displays of fear. The town's response to the creeping sickness is one of quiet retreat, of folding inward. Each household becomes its own small, self-contained world, closing its doors with the hope that silence might serve as a shield. From time to time, you catch a glimpse of movement behind a window, a hand drawing back a curtain, a pair of eyes watching the empty street. The townsfolk are still here, but they are watching from within, their lives now bound by the walls of their homes. The streets, once alive with mingling footsteps and voices, now hold only this soft echo of your own steps. Every sound feels amplified. In the stillness, the faint creak of a swinging signboard, the flutter of pigeons taking flight, the distant toll of the church bell marking the hour. You notice how the spread of the plague is not an eruption, but a gentle seepage, like water finding its way through the smallest cracks. It moves quietly, invisibly, from house to house. There is no single moment of catastrophe, only a gradual fading of familiar sounds, a slow erasure of faces from daily routines. You pass by a home where the scent of baking bread once drifted through the window every morning. Today, the shutters are closed, the oven cold. There is no announcement of illness, no gathering crowd, only an absence that speaks more loudly than words dot in another lane. You see a healer's apprentice placing small bundles of herbs beside doorsteps, her gestures careful and respectful. She does not knock. There is no need. The households will know why the herbs are there. These small offerings, sprigs of sage, lavender, and rue, are not cures, but tokens of care, left quietly without intrusion. You watch as she moves from house to house, her basket growing lighter, her footsteps barely a whisper on the cobblestones. The slow spread of the plague is not a visible wave, but a soft erosion. The town's daily sounds, laughter, conversation, the familiar rhythms of trade have thinned, replaced by a delicate quiet. Yet life continues in pockets. You pass by a window left slightly ajar, where the sound of a mother humming to her child drifts into the street. It is a gentle, steady melody, a lullaby not meant to soothe the world, but simply to keep a small home's rhythm alive amidst the uncertainty. As you walk further, you notice how people, when they do appear, move with a new awareness. Neighbors who once embraced in greeting now nod from a distance. Exchanges of bread, of water, of news are done with outstretched arms, placing items down and stepping back to allow the other to retrieve them. It is not fear that governs these actions, but a careful respect, an unspoken understanding that the air itself has become something to navigate with care. You pause at the edge of a small courtyard, where a family sits together beneath the shade of a tree. They are mending clothes, sharing a simple meal, speaking in soft voices. They do not acknowledge your presence, but they're quiet. Persistent movements seem to affirm something deeper, that even as the sickness touches the town, the gentle routines of life are not so easily abandoned. The fabric of daily existence is being gently reshaped, not torn. The sky shifts toward afternoon, casting long golden beams across the stone walls. The warmth feels gentle, but the streets remain sparse. The spread of the plague is not a sudden event, but an unfolding stillness. One by one, homes retreat into themselves. One by one, the familiar faces of the marketplace, the workshops, and the taverns withdraw behind closed doors. The town does not resist. It does not fight. It simply quiets dot by evening, as lanterns are lit behind shuttered windows. The town feels like it is wrapped in layers of soft fabric, muffling every sound, every movement. The plague has not arrived with shouts or screams. It has come like a shadow that stretches gradually across the landscape, changing its shape hour by hour. And yet, in the midst of this slow retreat, life holds on, not with noise, but with whispers, a candle lit for prayer, a loaf of bread baked in a small, quiet kitchen, a conversation held in hushed tones over a modest supper, the slow spread of the plague house to house is not marked by the loud tragedies of history books. Here, it unfolds in soft silences, in cautious glances, in the subtle retreat of footsteps echoing down empty streets. You feel the town breathing still, but now its breath is shallow, careful, as if it is hoping to outlast the shadow by simply staying still. By waiting, the morning sun rises slowly, casting soft beams of light that filter through the thin mist. Lingering in the streets, the town is quiet, quieter than before. But the stillness is no longer unsettling. It has become the new rhythm, a hush that stretches gently from doorstep to doorstep. As you step outside, the air feels cool and clean. Yet the absence of bustling footsteps and the usual morning calls weighs in the spaces between the cobblestones. You walk slowly, your own footsteps now a rare sound in streets that once sang. With life not today, something subtle has shifted. As you turn a corner, you notice a small house marked with a fresh symbol drawn in pale chalk, a simple cross, hastily made but clear against the weathered wood. This is not an announcement for others. It is a quiet signal, a way of saying, here, we wait apart. These chalk marks begin to appear more frequently as you wander through the lanes. Modest homes softly branded, not with shame, but with a kind of protective boundary. There are no guards, no locked doors, only a mutual understanding that these houses are to be given space. A new etiquette born not from law, but from the quiet wisdom of fear. The townfolk have learned that distance can be a form of kindness. You see it in how they move carefully, deliberately. When someone ventures out, they walk with a wide arc, avoiding the center of the street, their steps slow and mindful. Exchanges of goods are now silent transactions. A loaf of bread is placed at the edge of a doorstep, a small knot exchanged from afar. Coins are left in a small bowl, rinsed with a splash of vinegar, though no one knows if it truly helps. These small acts form a new language of care, where touch is replaced with gestures of space. Further along. Near the town square, you come upon a sight that feels both somber and strangely beautiful. Thin cloth banners, faded from the sun, hang from poles planted outside certain homes. They flutter gently in the breeze, marking places where the illness has taken hold. These flags are not there to shame, but to shield. They signal to others, softly, without words, that this household needs to be left in peace. There are no walls, no iron chains, only fabric, breeze, and the quiet agreement to stay apart. At the edge of the marketplace, once filled with the chatter of vendors and the clink of coins, you now find a temporary stall left unattended. Goods are arranged in neat rows, baskets of onions, bundles of herbs, small sacks of flour. There is no shopkeeper, only a simple wooden sign that reads, "Take what you need. Leave what you can." A bowl sits nearby for payment, but the act of exchange has become one of silent trust. People approach one by one, carefully observing distance, their movements gentle and unhurried. It is a system born from necessity, yet it feels tender in its simplicity. As you walk past the church, the heavy wooden doors remain closed. But outside, small gatherings of townsfolk kneel in the open air, spaced carefully apart. Their prayers are whispered, their heads bowed, not in a show of communal grief, but in quiet, personal supplication. The chants are softer now, as though even their voices have learned to step lightly. The church bells still toll the hours, their deep, resonant chimes rolling slowly across the rooftops, marking time in a town that has become a sanctuary. Stillness. You notice how the very rhythm of life has altered. Streets that once welcomed mingling now serve as invisible lines of demarcation. Homes become islands, families retreating into their own little havens, each doing their part in this collective retreat. And yet, life continues within these quiet fortresses. You catch glimpses through open windows, someone stirring a pot over a fire, the repetitive scrape of a knife cutting vegetables, a child's quiet laughter bubbling up before being hushed by a cautious parent dot in the afternoons, when the sun softens and shadows grow longer. You observe townsfolk placing small bundles outside their doors, simple offerings of bread, dried herbs, or a handful of fresh water. These gestures, left for neighbors who cannot venture out, form a silent chain of care stretching from house to house. Quarantine here is not enforced with fear or punishment, but through these delicate threads of mutual respect. Each household quietly weaving itself into a tapestry of shared solitude. The townspeople have begun to understand that walls and shutters can only do so much. They are learning, through quiet observation, that the plague does not announce itself with thunder, but with the faintest ripple and absence at the marketplace, a shuttered window where there once was light, a cough heard faintly behind a closed door. And so they respond not with panic, but with patience, creating a living, breathing quarantine built on small, silent agreements dot by evening. As the last rays of sunlight slip away, the town becomes a mosaic of candlelit windows. The glow of each flame is a small beacon, signaling that within those walls, life continues separate yet still connected. You walk past these flickering lights, feeling the shared quietness that binds the town together in its isolation. It is not a loneliness, but a collective pause, a waiting that is filled with whispered prayers and small acts of kindness, passed from one doorstep to the next. The night air grows cooler, and with it comes a deeper stillness. The town, wrapped in its self-made quarantine, seemed to breathe in unison, slow, careful breaths, as if the entire place is holding itself gently in balance. There are no cries of alarm, no hurried footsteps in the darkness, only the soft rustle of fabric banners in the wind, the faintest creak of wooden shutters settling into place, and the distant hum of a lullaby sung behind a closed door. The morning light creeps softly through a small, shuttered window, casting a thin sliver of gold across the wooden floor. Inside this modest home, the world feels still, wrapped in the gentle hush that has come to define life in these days of quiet retreat. The walls are made of thick, rough-hewn timber, offering a simple, protective embrace against the outside. You are standing in a space where life has slowed to a tender rhythm, where every small task fills the silence with meaning. A faint crackle from the hearth becomes the heartbeat of the home, its warm glow a steady companion. The fire is not large, just enough to keep a small pot of water simmering, filling the air with the comforting scent of herbs and broth. In one corner, a mother kneels by a wooden cradle, gently rocking it with one hand while mending a worn tunic with the other. Her fingers move with a patient precision, the needle threading through fabric in a slow, familiar rhythm. The child, in the cradle, watches her with heavy eyelids, lulled by the soft sounds of home, the pop of firewood, the whisper of the spinning wheel, the gentle creak of the cradle's wooden frame. The father is near the table, his hands dusted with flour as he kneads a simple bowl of dough. Each press and fold is unhurried, a ritual that grounds him in a world that has grown uncertain beyond their door. The smell of fresh bread will soon fill the room, rising to join the other small comforts that weave through the day. There are no conversations about the sickness here, no anxious pacing. Life within these walls has contracted into a small circle of necessities, each one carried out with a calm that feels like defiance against the fear outside, through a narrow window left slightly ajar. The breeze stirs the hanging herbs that dangle from the rafters. Lavender, sage, and rosemary sway gently, their fragrances mingling with the wood smoke. These small bundles are more than just ingredients for cooking. They are talismans of hope, believed to cleanse the air, to guard against invisible threats. Whether they truly hold such power matters less than the comfort they provide and their presence dot in the afternoon. The family gathers around the hearth. The work of the morning is done, and now comes the time for quieter labors. The mother spins, all, her foot rhythmically tapping the treadle of the spinning wheel. The father sits beside her, carving a small wooden toy, a simple bird, its wings delicately shaped beneath his careful hands. The child, now awake, watches intently, tracing the air with their tiny fingers as if imagining the bird already. In flight, these are not grand pastimes, but they are filled with a quiet tenderness that wraps the family in a cocoon of shared presence. Meals are modest but nourishing. A stew, stretched with whatever is available, is ladled into wooden bowls. They eat slowly, savoring each bite not out of scarcity, but because the act of eating together has become an anchor. Conversation flows gently, with stories of old festivals, of seasons past, filling the space where news of the outside world once lived. The family does not speak of illness, but their silence carries an understanding, a silent agreement to protect their home with calm and care. As the sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the walls, preparations for the evening begin. The shutters are checked, the door bolted, though not out of fear of people. It is a quiet barrier, a symbolic gesture that says, inside, we remain untouched. Candles are lit, their flames dancing softly, casting a warm, flickering light that softens every edge of the room. The fire in the hearth is stoked once more, its glow reflecting in the polished surface of a simple wooden cross hanging near the door. There is no clock here, no bells to mark the hour. Time is measured by the slow cooling of the stew, by the length of a prayer, by the quiet descent of evening. The family kneels together by the hearth before retiring, their prayers whispered in unison, not rushed, not urgent, but steady and heartfelt. Outside, the world remains quiet. Footsteps are rare now, and the occasional distant toll of the church bell feels like an echo from a faraway place. As night fully settles, the home becomes a small island of warmth amidst the darkened town. The family retires to their sleeping pallets, the child tucked securely between them. The walls feel close, but not confining. They are a shelter, a cocoon, holding the family in a shared breath of patience. Outside, the sickness may move silently, from house to house, but within these walls, life continues in its simplest, most human form. Sleep comes softly in this space. There's no rush, no expectation of what tomorrow will bring. Only the quiet reassurance that for tonight, the fire still burns, the bread still rises, and the rhythms of daily life hold firm. The small sounds of sleep, a deep exhale, the rustle of blankets, the gentle pop of the fire become a lullaby that belongs to the house itself. The morning begins as it always does now, slow, muted, wrapped in a gentle stillness. The air feels heavier, though not with sound, but with the absence of it. You step into the street, where the soft crunch of gravel beneath your feet echoes faintly, as though even the ground beneath you has learned to tread more quietly. The familiar routines of life, merchants setting up stalls, children running through the lanes are no longer there. The world has slowed, not with suddenness, but with the quiet persistence of a candle burning lower hour by hour. Today, a procession passes through the heart of town. It is not grand. There are no banners or music, no elaborate chants or proud declarations. Just a small wooden cart, its wheels creaking softly, pulled by a man whose face is hidden beneath the brim of a wide hat. The cart is simple, its boards rough and worn, and upon it rest shapes covered in linen, carefully laid, side by side. There is no crowd gathered, no wails of mourning. Instead, from behind shuttered windows and slightly ajar doors, quiet eyes follow the slow passage of the cart. The town watches in silence, not out of fear, but out of a kind of respectful resignation. The bodies are no longer carried one by one, as they once were to the churchyard. The sheer numbers have made such ceremonies impossible. Now they are collected in small groups gently, without spectacle. Those who perform this task do so with quiet reverence, their movements unhurried, their faces calm. There are no grand funerals, but each life is still treated with a simple dignity. A bow of the head, a soft murmur of a prayer. These small acts have taken the place of elaborate rites, and in their simplicity, They feel deeply human as the cart moves toward the outskirts of town, you follow at a respectful distance. The path winds slowly, passing fields that once echoed with the songs of workers but now lay fallow and hushed. The procession is not hurried. It does not feel grim or macabre. Rather, it is measured, deliberate, as though even the cart understands that it carries not just bodies, but stories, memories, and the quiet weight of lives once lived. At the edge of a meadow, a large trench has been prepared. It is not a place of horror, but of necessity. The earth here is soft and dark, the scent of turned soil rising gently into the air. Those who tend to the burials work with solemn care. They do not speak loudly. Their conversations are quiet, efficient, yet touched with a tenderness that acknowledges the gravity of their task. Each body is lowered with simple respect. There are no elaborate blessings, but each one receives a whispered prayer, a soft farewell offered not as a grand gesture, but as a human instinct. You notice that even in this place of final rest, nature carries on its own gentle rhythms. Birds still flit between the trees, their songs quieter, as if in tune with the mood of the day. A soft breeze stirs the tall grasses at the meadow's edge, their gentle rustling forming a hushed chorus. The sun continues its path across the sky, indifferent, yet bathing the scene in a warm light that softens the harshness of what is unfolding. The townfolk have adapted to this new way of parting. Where once there would have been processions filled with incense and choirs, there is now the simple procession of one cart, a few steady hands, and the shared understanding that these rituals, though pared down, still carry profound meaning. In the evenings, as the church bells toll, their echoes feel heavier, stretched longer as they roll across the empty streets. Each chime seems to linger, as if marking not only the hour but the names of those who have quietly departed. Back within the town, life continues in its subdued rhythm. Windows remain shuttered, but from within, the small acts of daily life persist. Bread is still baked, though in smaller loaves. Clothes are still mended, though with older thread. Families still gather around hearths, their conversations softer, often drifting into long silences. But these silences are not empty. They are filled with memory, reflection, and the quiet, shared resilience of a community that endures not through noise, but through the persistence of its simplest routines. In the narrow alleys, candles are placed in windows each evening. They are not part of any official decree. No one has ordered these small beacons to be lit, yet house after house, a gentle glow appears at dusk, as if each home is gently acknowledging those who have left. These candles do not scream into the night. They simply burn, steady and calm, as if to say, "We remember." As darkness falls, the town feels like it is wrapped in a soft blanket of quiet remembrance. The mass graves on the outskirts are not forgotten. They are part of the town now, a silent presence at its edge. But within the homes, life continues, marked by the persistence of human routines. A bowl of stew shared, a lullaby sung softly to a child, a whispered prayer before bed. These are the small, unremarkable acts that now serve as anchors in a world that has grown quieter, but not hollow. The streets may be emptier, the processions quieter, but the heartbeat of the town still pulses gently in these private spaces. The world may have contracted, but within the walls of each home, a quiet determination remains. Life is not rushing forward. It is not shouting into the void. It is simply breathing, slowly, patiently, waiting for a dawn when the cartwheels will no longer creak through empty streets, and when silence will once again be a choice, not a necessity. The air feels different now. Not as heavy as before, but not yet light. It is the kind of air that carries a lingering quiet, as if the town itself is holding its breath, uncertain whether to exhale in relief or brace for another storm. The first wave of the plague has passed through, leaving behind a hollowed landscape of emptied homes, shuttered shops, and streets that remember the echo of footsteps but now lie in a hush that feels almost sacred. You step outside and for a moment it feels as though the entire world is paused, as if even time itself is moving with care. reluctant to disturb the fragile stillness that hangs in the morning light. The marketplace, once a tapestry of voices, colors, and bustling energy, now stands open and bare, with only a few scattered stalls bravely standing. Their canopies flutter gently in the breeze, their vibrant fabrics dulled not by dirt, but by the absence of life beneath them. A single vendor sets out loaves of bread, arranging them slowly, not because he is lazy, but because he no longer needs to hurry. There are fewer hands to feed now, and the lines that once formed with the rising sun no longer appear. Yet his hands move with quiet purpose, a craftsman's devotion to his work. Even if only a handful will come today, Dot, you notice how the sounds of the town have softened into a delicate rhythm. The clang of a blacksmith's hammer strikes the air, not in the fevered pace of endless orders, but in slow, deliberate intervals, each strike echoing into the silence like a heartbeat that refuses to stop. A church bell tolls in the distance, its sound no longer marking the ceremonies of bustling crowds, but serving as a simple reminder that life, however diminished, still seeks order. There are no processions of mourners today, no carts carrying away the departed. What remains is an atmosphere of careful steps, of whispered conversations between those who have endured and now look to one. Another with eyes that have learned to measure time differently. Dot, as you walk through the narrow lanes, you see doors slightly ajar, shutters cautiously open just enough to let in the sunlight, as though homes themselves are testing whether it is safe to breathe freely again. Behind these doorways, life stirs with quiet tenacity. A woman sweeps her doorstep, her motions unhurried, each stroke of the broom pushing away not just dust, but the heavy memory of recent weeks. Children, fewer now, play with simple wooden toys in the corners of courtyards. Their laughter is soft and fleeting, as if unsure whether it is allowed to be as loud as before. There is no celebration, no collective sigh of relief. The people have not erupted into joyous gatherings. Instead, they move with a tender caution, like a town recovering from a long, uneasy sleep, stretching its limbs slowly, mindful of its own fragility. The rhythm of daily life begins to hum again, but in a softer key. Bakers still knead dough, cobblers still mend shoes, but each task is performed with a solemn patience, as if these acts are no longer just about commerce, but about restoring a sense of belonging to a world that has felt adrift. Dot, in the afternoons. The town square receives a few more visitors than before. People venture out, standing apart, but exchanging nods of quiet recognition. Words are few, but the presence of others feels like a balm. The emptiness that once dominated these streets is now shared. And in that shared emptiness, a new, tentative connection forms. Life is not rushing back. It is carefully unfolding like the petals of a flower that has survived a harsh frost. Unsure if the sun will stay, evenings arrive with a gentle grace. The glow of hearth fires returns to windows, their light spilling softly onto cobblestones that are no longer deserted, but gently populated by cautious footsteps making their way home. From within these homes, the murmurs of family prayers, the clinking of wooden bowls at supper, and the occasional strains of a lute or quiet song begin to weave a new fabric of daily life. It is not a return to how things were before. It is the beginning of something quieter, slower, more aware of its own fragility. The town feels like it is suspended in a delicate balance, hovering between what has been lost and what might be rebuilt. There is no certainty, no bold proclamations that the worst is over. But in every small, persistent act, a merchant reopening his stall, a family lighting a candle at dusk, a craftsman sharpening his tools, there is a quiet defiance against the silence that once threatened to settle permanently. Dot, as night falls. The streets grow still once more, but this stillness feels different. It is no longer the paralyzing quiet of fear, but a softer, more deliberate pause. A moment for breath, for reflection, for the simple act of enduring. The moon casts its gentle light over the rooftops, illuminating a town that, though scarred, continues to hold itself together through the steady. unspoken promise of its people to keep living, however quietly, one ordinary day at a time.